and those watching from home. Welcome to this meeting of the Audit and Risk Committee. I'll call for apologies, and we have one from Councillor McMillan. Would someone like Councillor Mackle and Councillor Lovett as well. Someone like to move we accept those apologies?
I'll move that.
Thank you. Second, Councillor Brown. All those in favour? Great. Thank you. Carried. Okay. Extraordinary business? No. Declarations of interest? No. Okay. Confirmation of the minutes on page 3 and 4. If everyone's happy, would someone like to move, please? Councillor Wilson, Councillor Brown, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Okay, item number 5 on page 5, management of accounts receivable. And Loretta and Erin, are you... Just Erin going to come forward? Cool. So just before we go into this first item, just like to make special mention that it's today will be Leanne's last meeting with us, and I was just going to hand over to Neil. So.
Thank you, Russell, and yeah, it's your last day, or tomorrow, I think, Leanne, with us, and hope you've enjoyed your time with being on the council here in Ashburton with us. We've certainly enjoyed you having here, doing the job with finance, you had property, forestry, IT, all the good stuff, all the fun stuff. So yeah, we really appreciate all you've done for us over the, has it been 4 years? Two. Well, it doesn't seem that long. Well, I mean, it seems longer than that. Yeah, but it's 2 years. No, it's been great. So on behalf of council, thank you for all that you've done for us over those 2 years you've been here, and wish you all the best for your move back to the North Island. Well done.
Very quick, thank you very much for those lovely words, and it has been a real pleasure to be part of Ashburton District Council. It's been a huge learning curve in places, but gee, it's been a great journey, and a real special thanks to the Mayor and the elected members here, and to my Chief Exec, who's led, I believe, a fantastic team. So thank you.
Thank you, Leanne. Okay, councillors, you have the information there in front of you. Do we have any questions? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Can I talk about debtors greater than 90 days, please? Bottom of page 6 is other debtors, but there's some earlier. Just I want to understand how we manage that. Like, what is our view on that? Do we write those off, or do we persevere? Like, for how long do we allow a debt?
So it goes through a cycle, and once it gets to the demand letter and they get the warnings through that, it goes to Debt Management Central, who chase the debt for council. In some instances, there may be an agreement made between getting certain things moving, and the same with Debt Management Central may be able to enter into a payment plan with the debtor, depending on circumstances.
So we may ask a subsequent question. We don't have a philosophical position of how we handle outstanding debt. Our strategy is to pursue the debt until we get repayment of some form or other.
Yes, that's correct. Unless there's a dispute on a particular invoice, we wouldn't move that forward until we get that resolved, because otherwise that would be unfair. But yes, we do.
Thank you.
Can I just add to that? Just to add to that, our opening position is always to try and reclaim this funding, because at the end of the day, it's money owed. We will do everything in our power to work with our debtors and get that a payment plan, and on the whole we have a higher success rate doing it that way.
Do we show anywhere any bad debts that we write off?
Through the chair, yes, we do, and it's typically in our annual report. And if it's over, and I can't remember, it's a minor amount, if it's over that, we would actually have to get the chief exec to write that off. And at this stage, for this year, we haven't written any off at all.
Thank you. Councillor Todd.
Thank you. Just on the overdue accounts, the resource recovery, once you get to 2 or 3 months, can people still use that facility? Like, is there a, can they still, go to the dump and get rid of stuff, even though they're 3 months overdue?
Sorry, can I just check that one? Which one were you? I couldn't. The resource recovery part data probably would not be able. I'd imagine that it has to be more of a commercial, but our people at the centre wouldn't have the name to be able to stop somebody coming in. Okay. So it's got to be one with invoice, whereas you typically, when you rock up to the resource centre, you're paying for it then and there.
Okay, yeah. The rental debtors, is this Glasgow lease, is it? Is that people behind a Glasgow lease, or?
Typically, but can't guarantee all.
Okay. I would have thought if it is Glasgow lease, they, because they're on a 21-year lease with 7-year right to renew, it would be a regular payment by the bank every month, every 2 months or 3 months.
So looking at this, it is Glasgow leases. We work, again, we've got negotiations in place with them to have a payment plan because at the end of the day, we own the land, they own what's on the land, and so our best, we use all endeavours to get them back on track paying their lease. That is the best option for us.
Okay. And sorry. So I was just going to ask, following on from that, if they decided to sell their lease and the buildings on it at that stage, we can recoup through the law, can we?
It's not like our rates where we have it attached to the property. So to recoup, we have to go through the typical collection process.
Okay. And just I'm just interested in the one under animals, which is 32,470. What is that?
Is that the timing of the?
Which one are you talking about?
Just the fifth or sixth one down. It says animals.
Oh.
And 3 months over is 32,400.
Timing of.
Yeah, so that's the timing because we issue the registration for everybody on day one. So yes, some will be late, won't have paid on day one.
Mr. Mayor.
The debt collection agency that you use, how do they get paid?
Through the chair, we have an arrangement with them. They are part of a shared service in the North Island, and we pay a range of fees. The maximum is 10% commission, and that's upon them successfully collecting or entering into an arrangement with them.
No win, no fee?
No win, no fee.
Okay, thank you.
There's no further questions. There's a recommendation there on page 5. Councillor Cameron, you're moving.
I'll move that recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Brown seconding. Any further comment or discussion? Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Richard, welcome.
Good afternoon.
Anything further you would like to add to your report?
Between Sarah and I, there's 2 things we would like to highlight. Sarah may be able to explain further. Page 10 on Stella had a report dated the 31st of August 2023, which is clearly incorrect, so should be disregarded. And I understand that August 2024 was circulated this morning to you all.
Just prior to this meeting.
So if you check your emails, councillors, it is there.
Cool. And the second point, just while you find that, in the September 2024 report, you'll note that energy and pool costs are overspent in terms of variance. That relates to a creditor invoice from the last financial year that came into this financial year and could not be moved back. So we're going to have that variance sitting there throughout the year, but it actually relates to 23-24, and we checked this morning the corresponding natural account was underspent in 23-24, so it makes sense.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Through the chair, thanks Richard for this. I'm looking at the latest one that Sarah's just circulated. When I look at the fixed costs, if they're a fixed cost, how come we're 21,000 below what we forecast if they're a fixed cost?
Through you, Mr. Chair, would you like to look at September? Because September, which is in the agenda, would be more accurate as opposed to the August report that I did resend.
I've just got that out, haven't I? August 31, so I'm not to look at that one. You've sent another one?
No, just in the agenda, it had two reports. It had August and September.
Oh,
so,
yeah, I'm looking at the September.
If we look at September, that's the most accurate.
And that's got negative 38,799 on it for the fixed cost. Or is that centre overhead? Fixed cost.
I'd see the figure
Total
that you're
fixed
talking
cost
about.
down 38,000.
That's facility wide. So you can see that we break up the costs to different areas that can be isolated within the facility and also facility wide. So where we can't assign something to a particular area like the pool or the gym, it then fits into the facility wide costs, and there's a number of staff costs, electricity costs, etc., that then get distributed across those other activities by way of a transaction.
Yeah. Can I ask a clarification question, please? I thought the costs would be spread or distributed, a fixed cost, like personnel cost or whatever would be a fixed cost and would be evenly spread across the year. And if we've had additional things like, I don't know, the big bouncy castles in the swimming pool, I mean, the staff would be more costly, I imagine, but I would have thought that we wouldn't be, we've only been in the year a couple of months, I wouldn't have thought we'd be negative 38,000 on their fixed cost.
So, through the chair, if I can just add to that. So those fixed costs have probably been budgeted on a 1/12. Now, some of those costs, such as our property costs, may not have come through yet. So it won't always be a perfect 1/12. By the end of the year, I'd be surprised if those fixed costs weren't where we would expect them to be. Personnel costs could be an exception, because if we lose staff and we have a gap between person leaving and a new person starting, there will always be savings. So the timing isn't always perfect in 1/12, but typically by the end of the year, the fixed costs balance out.
Okay. Yeah, I understand about the staff, but it is a fixed cost, so, and we should know what it, the Rio Centre's been around a while now, we should know what it costs to run it pretty much within a sort of a little bit.
So you've got the full annual cost is there when you look at the budget to your right for the full year.
Yeah.
What we're reflecting is that, yes, we're 3 months into it, but we can't guarantee that everything is perfectly 1/12, meaning 3/12 for the first quarter.
Yeah.
So the timing of costs might go like this in some things. Even though they're fixed, that doesn't mean they're all 1/12.
Yeah, okay.
Any further questions? No? Thank you, Richard.
Sorry, just before you go, Richard, you showed at the activity briefing that our numbers have gone up again, which is really good, and we're looking forward to another stellar year at the EA Network Centre. Where is that income, extra income, found in those numbers? If I go into operating income, it's got, I can see it broken down to retail, stadium, meeting rooms, pool. Where's the facility wide as compared to last year income? Year to date, and we've got budget full year variance, is that 19% more over the last quarter, or where do we see the...
Through the chair, this report doesn't reflect on last year in any way, shape or form. This is
Okay,
just operational for this financial year. I just probably draw attention to the fact that the activity briefing refers to visitation to the facility as in people counters.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily additional visitation in terms of a basketball tournament doesn't necessarily reflect into additional income.
Okay.
There's spectators, and amongst that, there's parents coming to watch swimming, etc., etc.
So that's what we're seeing, really. We've seen additional people through the door, but that has not necessarily generated additional income at the Air Network Centre till.
Not to the same percentage.
Well, it's
Because
hard to
like
tell 'cause we
basketball
don't know,
would have
we
paid to
can't
hire
compare.
the stadium. But also, I assume some other groups may have used it part of the time that basketball did if basketball hadn't have been there. So the percentage of income increase wouldn't have been that
Correct.
big.
The income would be reflective, the way that
Yes.
you're referring to it, but a basketball tournament, for example, brings a whole lot of foot traffic with it, but still brings similar amounts of income,
Okay.
or maybe slightly higher, but similar
Thanks for that
amounts.
clarification. So if I want to compare this year's income with last year's income, where do I see that on these spreadsheets if it's not on them?
Not on these.
Not on them.
So how can we see how we're going, if we're down or up, or if we want to make improvements or suggestions, or we want to consider revenue stream or all the rest of it? How do we look at that?
So through the chair, you can see, again, going to the column to the total, to the left, to the right, sorry, year-to-date totals.
Yep.
So you can see your full year budget, and you can see actuals and year-to-date. And right at the moment, looking at income alone, we're tracking for the moment at 18.7 thousand more, but that could be timing because, again, we have different streams of traffic, seasonal. To look at how we are comparing to a year ago, you'd need to go and pull last year's report from Stella for September and compare how they were looking.
Okay, so this variance is for 1 quarter, year to date, July, August, September, 1 quarter variance for $18,000 up on budget. And we don't know how budget reflects growth from last year, or indeed if it does reflect growth. We have to go back to Stella to check if we're going up and down. Like if we want to get stock a new line of magazines or something, we don't know if that's had any impact on turnover or not, do we? Unless we go back to Stella a year ago.
Correct, except that when you, right back when we set the budgets, we do at that time have the comparative to the year before, so that you are always looking at what have we increased on or decreased on depending on income and expenditure. So when we set the budgets, but at this stage we haven't, I think to squeeze another line in there,
Would be
given how crammed that is now, would be a big ask for you.
That's right. I would argue that we can have year-to-date totals, but we can probably work out the total based on the year-to-date. Perhaps we don't need that. It'd be quite good to look at growth or otherwise or something, compare, or we can go back and look at it if we can find that. If there's a link to that, so it's easier to find. It's just that we sort of working a bit blind. If we've got increased strain on our resource at EA in terms of staffing for more people, in terms of wear and tear on the lino and the doors and recycling the water and the everything else. If we don't know we're generating increased income for that we need to see that. If that's like we keep saying, go to EA Networks, it's a great facility, keep going, but we don't know if our costs are going up greater than our income or what the impact is.
Hamish, did you have a comment there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the intention of this report is to show how we're travelling against the budget. So this was always how does council get comfort that the operations of the EA Network Centre, how is it performing against the budget? And that's why it's in this form. That's why we produced it over now a number of months exactly this way, rather than think about whether the budget is more or less than last year's actual. This report was never intended to do that. And in fact, council, when they set the budget through the long-term plan or the annual planning process, gets to have their collective view on what is an appropriate budget. And then this is to say, hey, we're tracking or not against the expectations that council set when the budget was established. So that's why that information is not here. This report was not intended to do that.
Thank you for that clarification, Hamish. Any further questions? No, there's a recommendation there on page 9. Someone like to move, please? Councillor
Happy to
Brown?
move.
Oh, and Murray, you second?
Yep.
Thank you. Any further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Page 12, Transways Canterbury Limited Annual Report. This is here for your information. If there are any questions, we will try to answer them, but obviously don't have anyone from Transways here, and Liz is our representative on that, and she's an apology today, but if someone has a question, we'll see how we go. Councillor Wilson?
I'd just like to draw attention to a couple of things that people, don't realise. If you look at page number 25, and halfway down, it talks about the government increasing the emissions to $50 a tonne. The levy on waste to $50 a tonne, that's affected the facility because it's obviously meant a bigger cost to it. And they're talking about how the diversion, which means that because people have got to pay extra levy, there's cheaper options out there that aren't as good, and it could be a perverse outcome of some waste being diverted to places that aren't as good as that. It's an interesting outcome from that increased waste levy. And then page 26, the emissions. We talked about this the other day about the emissions where we're going to take in all our green waste and do something with it. But it was going to Cape Valley, and that was perceived to be a bad outcome. But if you look at emissions from Cape Valley, they took in 300,000 tonnes, and 287,000 tonnes of that was destroyed or turned into electricity. And it was only destroyed by burning because the power lines aren't big enough to get from Cape Valley to the national grid. So as a greenhouse gas way of getting rid of it, Cape Valley is exceptionally good. So I thought those two things were important to read into it, so that because Cape Valley is a world-class facility. And when people say that we should be doing other things with greenhouse gas, this is actually our best place to put it.
Thank you. Hamish?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't disagree with those final comments of the councillor. Just noting, though, that the waste levy is payable by all organisations that run a landfill. So that's not an incentive or a penalty from one landfill over another. That levy is consistent across all landfills. And of course, we get a portion of that back, and it must be spent on waste minimisation. So the incentive is there for everyone to think about ways of minimising that cost via council's waste minimisation strategies. So just those few comments might be helpful.
Do we know how much we get back? Because I worked it out. 3% of 17 million is 530,000 of our money goes into the levy. Do you know how much through our waste the levies that get obviously paid out for strategies? Do we know how much that is we get back?
Yes, we do. It's a budgeted item in the budget. I don't have that available to me right now, but we can certainly circulate that number. And of course, it's going up as the levy increases. And we only get a portion of it back. We don't get the whole levy, and goes in all sorts of different places. We get a portion of it back. But we can give you some more accurate data on that following the meeting.
Thank you. I think another thing this report highlights is what a fantastic facility we have the privilege almost to be involved in. So exceptionally well run and very efficient facility that, as I say, we're very lucky to be involved with. Any further questions or comments? Recommendation there, page 12. I'm happy to move. Murray seconding. No further discussion. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Right, that brings us to the end of the open part of our meeting. Someone like to move? We go into committee. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Wilson. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you.